everyone, my name is Amanda and I'm the Fun Size Reader. I have talked about these books many times before, and it's always one that I have recommended throughout my entire reading time, pretty much since I read them. But they've been exploded all over the internet, exploded all over social media, but I have loved them since they first came out. That is the Court of Thorns and Roses series by Sarah J. Maas. This is one of my favorite fantasy series, and I wanted to talk about it again because the next book in the series, but like kind of not, is coming out in February. That is the new release date. I think it was originally supposed to be in January and then they pushed it to February. Damn you, Sarah. I have to wait a little bit longer, but I wanted to talk about them because I have been slowly rereading. I've been listening to them on audio as I drive to work because I wanted to have them fresh in my mind before I read the next book. Even though we know that the next book doesn't follow the same characters, they're characters that we know and love from this series. So I wanted to kind of talk about my reread and recommend again to everyone that they should read this series. So I started obviously with book one, and I actually really like the audio version. I didn't know if I would because I actually read all of them when they first came out, but I do like the narrator. I think it's great listening to them, and I was shocked at how much I didn't remember. I was really glad that I went back and read things. I mean, I remembered the overarching story, but there were bits and pieces that I just didn't remember. I liked it just as much as when I read it the first time, even though I knew what was going to happen in the subsequent books. I just want to say that I really hope that you haven't gotten anything ruined from this book to this book, because just being able to experience them in their glory is amazing. And I really hope that you are able to do that if you haven't read them already. This one is obviously my favorite. I am very much a second book person. I usually like the second book in most series that I read, and this was no exception, even though it's a lot bigger than the other ones. Technically, it's not the biggest, but size-wise it is because I made the pages thinner on the third book, but this is fantastic. It's one of my favorites in all of fantasy, and I think there's a lot of life lessons in it, more so than just like the great story, because the story is great. It still continues to follow Feyre, who we meet in book one. Kind of sets everything up for the remainder of the series. But I'm really curious because I personally had to wait for every single one of these. I got the first book like, I don't know, a couple weeks after it first came out. I was recommended by a lady who worked at Barnes & Noble who was like, do you just want to read a really good book? And I was like, yeah, of course. And I had never really read fantasy at that point. And she just handed me this book and said, go read this, please. And so I did. And I was like, oh my God. That's when I had to wait for the years that it takes Sarah J. Maas to write her books, because she's got so many different series going all at the same time. So I had to wait for every single one of them. But because of that, I feel like I didn't really love Court of Wings and Ruin like everybody else loved this book who have read it straight through. I had to wait a really long time to read this one. And I remember thinking, like, I don't remember what's going on. I don't know what's going on. I should have reread, but sometimes I just don't like rereading a book that I've already read. Sometimes I just don't have time. And so this took me a very long time to finish. I have not re-listened to this yet. So I plan on doing that in the next couple weeks before A Court of Silver Flames comes out in February. But I really wonder if I'm going to have the same feeling. And it's funny because my sister actually had the same response. She didn't really love this book, even though so much happens. Like, this is such a plot heavy, everything coming together type of book, but it just took us forever to read it and we don't know why. So I was curious if other people had that same experience, and I was curious if on my reread I would have that same experience, because I just recently finished both of these, like within the past few months. I feel like I really need to remember what happens in this one because it was so long ago that I read it, before Silver Flames comes out, because I feel like it's just going to pick up where it left off. I don't remember where it left off. So that being said, this was actually the last one, A Court of Frost and Starlight, and this came out when I was in school a couple years ago. And I remember being super excited about it, thinking that it was going to be this big book, and it was not. But I ended up really liking it. I thought that it was a great ending that should have been at the end of the third book, but obviously the third book was so long that they didn't want to tack it on and keep people reading. It, you know, it's YA, so they try to keep them shorter. But I really liked it. I thought it was a great ending to kind of everything. It was feel good for me. I don't really remember a lot of it. Again, I have to reread this one too. All in all, this is one of my favorite fantasy series. And I'm really excited, but also kind of nervous because I love this series so much that I'm nervous for it to continue. But I love things that Sarah writes. So I like put my faith in the author to continue on a great set of characters. And so I really hope that I'm going to love the next book just as much, even though I'm going to have to wait years for the one that's probably coming after that. Just like with Crescent City, because we're doing the same thing with that one, playing the waiting game. But if you haven't read these books and you like fantasy, definitely please pick them up. They were just re-released as adult books because one, the length, and two, some of the content is a little bit more adult than the young adult section kind of has. And so they have new covers. I have the original covers because I obviously got them a long time ago. I'm not a super fan of the new covers. A lot of people love them. I don't really see that it fits with the story. I think these fit a lot better, but what are you gonna do? I'm not rebuying the next set, so oh well. Even though I'm not gonna have matching copies with the new book that comes out because the new one matches the new covers and bleh. If you want to chat more about Sarah J. Maas's books, I've read most of them. I have not finished the Throne of Glass series yet because I get stuck on the same book every single time. But if you want to chat more, you can find me on Instagram at The Fun Size Reader, on Facebook at The Fun Size Reader, and on Twitter at Fun Size Reader. Don't forget to click subscribe and like on the video, and check the little box, the bell, I think, that sends you notifications when I post a video. See you guys next time.